What's up, fam and cheese? Today I have another very special guest, my good friend, my fam, my cheese. We've got Sam Brown here today.
Hello.
I love saying that I'm friends with you and calling you by your full name because everyone's like, that's the most, Sam Brown is just, it's like the default name that pops up in...
So I don't know why, but people either call me Sam, or I've also had a lot of people who only call me Sam Brown. Like they never have the Sam without the Brown, and I don't know why, but I don't mind it. You know?
It's just so fun. I don't know. We have Sam Brown here today, alive and in the flesh, bringing us some life, all the way from Stephenville, America.
Yeah, ooh, all the way from there.
The most fun town on earth.
Slight exaggeration, but...
I was just telling Sam before we started recording, I have no plans for this video. He came into town, we had a great conversation about whatever I title this video. We were having just a good conversation, and I thought, man, we need to make a video about this, because I think it's actually really important that we do.
And I have a vague idea of what this video is about, but... You know, the suspense is killing me for the for the specifics.
Yeah. So one thing that our little West Texas-ish towns have in common is that the majority of people in them flock to country music.
They do.
And swing dancing and good old hootenannies.
Yeah, but there's a reason it's called country music, you know. So
we're literally in the country.
Quite.
This video is about the use of metal music in worship. Right off the bat, I'm probably getting a lot of shocked face emojis, or I don't know, I've gotten some weird responses when I even vaguely bring this kind of thing up. Have you ever brought this kind of thing up? Have you had conversations with people about...
Well, so, a little context, I think would help. I think part of the reason Kyle brought me on for this video is because I used to be the vocalist for a Christian metal band. I wouldn't say that we were metal worship, but I would say that, I wanted it to lead them closer to God. And that was kind of the general, I guess, sort of mission statement. Never really specifically hashed it out. And it's fine because we're not a band anymore, and but it ended up being really cool. But anyway, I think that's that's a little bit of the context. And usually, I think metalheads tend to seek each other out. Kind of, it might not come up initially in conversation, but it will at some point.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of cool when you share that with somebody. People do kind of react funny, whenever they discover, oh, he listens to metal. Because I don't think that I have a very metal persona.
And, I never thought that either, and then I got tattoos.
Yeah, and then if the conversation leads that way, they're even more surprised when they find out that most of the metal I listen to is Christian metal. And they're like, that's a thing? So, and I think metal in general is kind of a misunderstood genre. I think it carries with it a connotation, because where it came from is not where it is now in so many ways.
Dude, okay, there's so many, everything you just said reinvigorated my want to have this conversation, because there's 5 different tangents that are all going in my mind right now. I just don't even know where to start on any of them. One thing that stood out to me was what you had said about the community really being a tight bunch, after you find them.
Yeah.
And I think that's because, it really is, it's a specific niche of people who both like metal and love Jesus. And I think your band story is actually pretty case in point of a lot of Christian metal bands, how they usually end up. And so you end up with these Switchfoot type of people who, they're all Christian guys and they wanted to make a band. They all have common interest, but there's not really that kind of mission statement. So it's really rare to find, I would say, a metal worship band. I think that would be fair to say. And that is even tougher to find. Think about having a hard time even finding a Christian metal band as it is. I think that being a niche group, it's really special. When you find, oh, you like metal, you automatically are friends with the person, especially where we're from. I kind of made the joke about country music. really ruling the land here. It's hard to find metalheads in West Texas. I think that's safe to say.
So, it is, I mean, it's hard to find them in the sense that they're not as common, but it's also kind of easy to find them in the sense that where they do exist, they stick out. Like,
right.
You know, it's like, oh, that guy...
There's always a way about the metalheads.
Yeah. You know, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of niches, but metalheads tend to seek each other out, you know? Because it's always refreshing when you have someone who enjoys a good breakdown as much as you do, you know?
Not mental breakdowns, metal breakdowns. Isn't it surprising, too, that you find so many people have closeted that type of, like, I like this music, but I don't really tell people that I like it because... everyone else kind of likes this other thing, so... So
my last 2 years of high school, I went to a school in a very, very small town. My graduating class was 11 people. Whenever we started out, initially it was just me and my buddy Zach. We started out initially in like that country acoustic kind of field, but we didn't stay there very long. We like opened up this whole new world we just progressively went from like soft acoustic alternative rock to like harder alternative rock to like post-hardcore, and then we went into like full-on metal. So it was like a whole evolution.
And that's how a lot of people do.
Yeah, but the thing is, so we stuck out in our community, but it was like a gradual thing. It was kind of synced up with like the gothic culture. That's not really true. That's not really the case, you know?
We're about to get into that.
But I guess like in their heads, they were like, oh, metalheads are these just creepy, like off on their own. Either that or they're like super aggressive and like not very nice people or whatever, which is funny because some of the sweetest people I've ever met have been in the metal scene.
Crazy how that works too.
And I'm talking a lot.
You want me to direct you with a question?
Yeah.
What kind of drew you to metal in the first place? Like what made you interested? What brought that progression along?
I felt like I had things that I wanted to express. I felt like there were a lot of things people didn't talk about. And I guess the short way to say it is, I saw myself kind of slipping into this life of timidity and quietness, and you can be compassionate, and you can be gentle and caring and loving without being afraid and timid. I wanted to break out of that, and I loved the persona of fearlessness that I felt with metal. Like, you had, you know, from the mosh pit to the general act of like, no, I won't be quiet. I won't submit to the things that I know are keeping me from who I should be. And that was what drew me to it. Was I wanted to fight back against that, because I felt like I was missing so much, and I felt like my fears were keeping me from being who I was meant to be. And for some reason, metal just spoke to that for me. You know, it was
gave you a voice against fear.
Yeah, exactly. There was like being on stage during a metal show is something that like
it's kind of surreal.
Oh, it is. It definitely is, and it's just like this.
I've never been the one playing, but I've stage dived off it.
So I've never stage dived just because, you know, we never played any shows big enough to stage dive. If I'd tried to stage dive, I probably would have eaten it.
Oh, trust me, I did.
But
I'll insert a clip of me falling directly to the ground.
The beautiful thing about metal, though, is it puts you in a mindset where you don't even care if you eat it.
Yeah.
You know? It's like for metal for me is like, it's this, because it gets you in a frame. It gets you in a frame of mind where you're willing to take risks and try things that you've never tried before. There's no way that I would jump into a bunch of dancing, punching strangers outside of a metal concert. Yeah. It's not like we all hate each other. Right. At all. It's like we're all in this together. It's like it's almost like an ancient pre-battle ritual. In my mind, they would like wrestle or like have these contests to like test strength or something. That's kind of like how the mosh pit felt to me.
That's such a cool illusion. It's almost like, and instead of some physical battle that you're prepping yourself for, it's like battles that are going on inside, and you're almost united in that with the people around you. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it is. It's putting you in a place where, because like your internal battles, probably the quickest way to lose an internal battle is to feel alone. That was the primary message of most of the stuff that we wrote for our band was, you're not alone in this. Like, we feel this too. Metal provided the rallying cry for people who felt like they were facing things alone, and brought them together and basically puts them in a place where, like, we know that you're fighting an invisible enemy, but you don't have to fight them alone. This is our stand against this, and this is us letting each other know that we got each other's backs, you know?
100%.
So, yeah.
I really didn't know what brought me to metal for the longest time. Like, I had to ask myself this question. What I got at was just one word: authenticity. Especially in the realm of worship and of Christian contemporary music, and really just kind of any other art form. I think people are crying out for truth and for authenticity and for something they can latch onto and trust. I discovered really quick that it's hard to scream at the top of your lungs and not be truthful about what you're screaming. It really is standing in who you are, giving you a voice, and saying loudly where you're at. There's not too many other ways of expressing that in the world that give you this avenue of, like, I mean, we live in a culture that really looks down on shouting and volume, and, you know, when you're raising your voice, that means you're angry. And we associate that. And don't hear me out, like, there's some truth to that, don't get me wrong. But at the same extent, we've taken that completely away, and no one has this avenue of expressing this other emotion, which sometimes is anger. We're a culture that tries to forget anger, and thus makes it this thing where it comes out in ways that are really ugly. Again, don't mishear me. Metalheads are not always, you know, sunshine and roses, you know. It depends on the crowd you involve yourself in. And also don't hear us say that all metal is perfect. Good grief.
Yeah. There's a reason that metal has a kind of a really dark persona around it, and it is because there are a lot of dark places that metal has gone to.
There's a band out there called Cannibal Corpse.
Oh, yeah. Them. Yeah.
So, it's not that that's what we're advocating for. It's just... And then there was also this thing of, I was just frustrated that I looked around and I felt like people, when they became Christians, felt like they had to listen to this one type of, like, that means that I take on, this is what Jesus would have listened to, what's on Christian contemporary radio.
Right.
It's just not fulfilling. It's missing the mark of who that person is.
And that's the thing, is, like, it's gotten to a point, and I'm not saying everybody's like this, but I've even met people who tied their music selection in with their Christian identity. Like, I'm a Christian because I listen to this type of music. Mm-hmm. And that was weird for me and kind of scary, because, like, if that's what you're tying your identity into, like, Christianity isn't about a certain sound or a certain, you know, lighting or a certain atmosphere, quote unquote. Christianity is a surrender to God in a position of the heart. It's declaring with your mouth and believing with your heart. And
what better way to do that than screaming it at the top of your lungs with people besides you uniting?
Well, that's the thing, is you can scream it at the top of your lungs. Our last song that we ever did, and one of the lines was versus the silence versus the noise. The bastards will tell us that we don't have a choice, but I don't have to scream for you to hear my voice. You're the remedy. You are the remedy. So the bastards were... I wasn't saying that to be provocative. I was saying that the fatherless, the ones who aren't connected to the Father, will tell us that we don't have a choice. We have to be a certain way to be heard or to matter. But my reply was, you know, we don't have to scream, but we don't have to whisper either. Mm-hmm. You know, God hears us either way.
And to eliminate that expression of worship, though, like, from any side, from metalheads saying, oh, you listen to that normie stuff, or whether it's other people looking on at metalheads as satanic, it's really just eliminating that expression of how Father hears us.
Yes. Well, I mean, there are days when you're dealing with certain things, listening to your typical worship music just doesn't express what you're feeling. There are days when I just want to pick up my sword, in a spiritual sense, and I want to shout a battle cry, and I want to charge into the fray, and I want to express that to God and be like, you're in me, you're by my side, and I'm fighting with you, And I'm sorry, but like Oceans doesn't give me that. Oceans doesn't give me that feel. What Oceans does is Oceans was a really powerful song in my life when it first came out. And it was because I was going through things that I felt like I was in way too deep. But so that song was appropriate for what I was feeling in that moment.
The season.
I needed to be brought into that position of surrender at that time in my life. But there were also days where I needed to be reminded, like, we're in a fight. And we need to rally together, and we need to feel like we can shout and we can scream and we can resist with everything in us. And that position is much more aggressive, and I just don't get that from
same settings and everything.
Alrighty.
Hello, everyone. You just witnessed a brief intermission, as evidenced by my little face mask here.
Oh yeah, you didn't have that on.
We had to take a brief break, but we are back here for closing remarks. I'll go ahead and take this off. The main question I wanted to ask, and what I always like to ask after my videos, is where do we go from here? So, in other words, how would you advise the church, both that likes metal music and that does not, how do we coexist, and how would you say we move forward in our worship environments?
How would I advise the church?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You've got a platform, you've got a voice here.
Okay, well, first of all, I would say, I think be patient with each other. If you find that you're a metalhead and your music tastes offend people around you, then do your best not to offend them. You don't have to, you don't have to blare it when they're in the car or whatever. You can do something that's more to both of your tastes. But also, if you're not a metalhead, be patient with the metalheads in your life. Do your best not to be offended by it, because they're not blatantly, or at least I hope they're not blatantly just rebelling against the culture, because that's not what it's about. When we get to heaven, the thing that's going to matter is that we worshiped God with all our hearts, all our minds, and all our souls the best way we could. And if that leads you to listen to a certain kind of music on a certain day, or if that leads you to complete silence for a while, then that needs to be your response. Because if that's where God is taking your heart, then you shouldn't resist that either way.
Cool. Yeah. And I guess if I had anything to say, man, especially for the people in the church who are not metalheads, I say if you need a dose of boldness, then seek out those that know metal music and that, follow my playlist that I made on it. You could do whatever. I would say seek understanding in that, because there's a certain fire, I think, that could be lit under you from just changing genres. And I think the worship of Jesus in those genres is infectious, and I think it's a picture of heaven.
That being said, you don't need metal to be bold.
Right. Definitely not, but it can help.
Yeah, it can help. And it can make it funner.
Yeah.
It can make it more enjoyable.
I think with that, there are things that obviously you can have it one or not the other, but certain mindsets, are triggered by certain genres, and certain, like, music has its own power to it.
Yeah. And we're made that way.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
And to the metalheads, I actually have a bold encouragement too. I say, seek out, if you're a musician and you're into that type of music. I know a bunch of metalheads who are involved in a bunch of different kinds of bands. Because when you can play metal, you can play a lot of things. The world is in need, without even knowing it, of metal bands who create a worship atmosphere where Jesus is on the throne, and creates an atmosphere of people seeking Jesus, hands raised, voices screaming. I think it's an untapped market. So, and I think our teacher has sown a broad harvest, and that is one of the fields that's just waiting to be reached. Yeah, I would, that is a suggestion. Watch a music video, metalhead or not, of the type of atmosphere that this kind of creates in metal. Yeah. And it's by a band called Sleeping Giant. Sam, I want to thank you for being in the video.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm just excited for whatever this new wave of... There's just a lot of new music coming out.
Yeah.
And exciting. So, metal or not, I'm just excited for where it's headed. Metal or not, I'm excited where things are going. And again, Sam, thank you for being in the video.
Yeah.
And until the next video, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.
See ya.